Have you ever been afraid to hug your own child? Not because you don't love them, but because one wrong move could break their ribs. For 8-year-old Lily, the world wasn't a playground, it was a minefield. Doctors called her the girl made of glass. One sneeze could break her collarbone. But one stormy night, when the wind blew out the windows and rain turned the garden into a swamp, Lily did the very thing that should have killed her. She walked out to the Virgin Mary. What they found the next morning on the broken glass made the doctors cross themselves. Hannah pressed the doorbell of the Victorian mansion in the Seattle suburbs and shivered. It had been pouring rain for 3 days straight. It seemed as if this house, surrounded by tall, dark trees, was trying to hide from the rest of the world. Hannah was 32 years old. She was a professional nurse specializing in palliative care. She had seen a lot. She had seen lives fade away. She had seen pain. She had seen despair. She was hired because the previous caregiver had run away after 2 weeks. She said she couldn't stand the sound, the agency warned. What sound? Hannah had asked. The sound of a bone snapping from the simple touch of a bedsheet. The door was opened by a woman who looked like she hadn't slept in 10 years. Sarah, Lily's mother. Deep shadows under her eyes, hands nervously picking at the edge of her cardigan. The house didn't smell of comfort or baking, but of rubbing alcohol, sterility, and fear. "Are you Hannah?" she asked in a whisper, as if a loud voice could bring down the walls. "Yes, I'm here to help." They walked into a room on the ground floor. It wasn't a child's bedroom. It was a bunker lined with soft panels. No sharp corners. Carpets as thick as a hand. In the center of the room, in a special chair padded with a dozen pillows, sat Lily. She was 8 years old, but she looked 5, small, unnaturally fragile. But the first thing that caught your eye wasn't her size, it was her eyes. The whites of her eyes weren't white, they were blue, a deep celestial shade, a classic sign of severe osteogenesis imperfecta. Lily wasn't crying, she wasn't watching cartoons. She looked straight at Hannah with the frightening calmness of an ancient elder trapped in a child's body. "Hi, Lily," Hannah said, trying to keep her voice soft. The girl blinked slowly. "Are you the new one?" Her voice was quiet, like the rustling of paper. "Yes, I'm here to make things a little easier for your mom." Sarah began the briefing. It was a list of rules written in blood and panic. Don't lift suddenly. Never pull by the arm. If she wants a drink, support her head. Don't open the windows. A draft can cause a cough, and a cough can break a rib. And most importantly, no walks. Hannah nodded. She knew the protocol. "Does she ever go outside?" Hannah asked, looking at the huge French windows facing the garden. "Too dangerous," Sarah snapped. "Gravity is her enemy. The wind is her enemy. We look at the world through glass. It's safer that way." The whole day passed in tense silence. Every movement in this house was calculated, cautious. Hannah changed the IV with vitamins, adjusted the pillows, trying to barely touch the girl's skin. Lily endured all the procedures silently. She was used to her body being a problem that needed solving. Towards evening, the rain intensified. The branches of an old oak tree scraped against the roof. Lily asked, "Move me to the window, please. I want to see Auntie." Hannah carefully, millimeter by millimeter, moved the massive chair to the glass. The garden outside the window was drowning in twilight and rain. It was overgrown, wild. Rose bushes had intertwined into a thorny wall. And in the center, in a small stone niche, stood a statue. It was the Virgin Mary, old marble, darkened by time and the dampness of Seattle. Her face was calm, her hands slightly spread to the sides, as if inviting someone into an embrace. Lily pressed her forehead against the cold glass. "Hello, Auntie," she whispered. "You have beautiful shoes today." Hannah frowned and looked closer. "Lily, what are you talking about? It's a statue. She doesn't have shoes." Hannah looked at the stone figure. The hem of the Virgin Mary's dress hid her feet, but it was clear she was standing on rough stone barefoot. Lily didn't take her eyes off the garden. A faint, mysterious smile appeared on her lips. "She's only barefoot during the day, Hannah. You just haven't seen her dance yet." Hannah felt a slight chill run down her spine. She wrote it off as a draft in the old house, or the effect of the painkillers the girl was taking. But looking into Lily's unnaturally blue eyes, Hannah realized one thing. This girl sees the world very differently than what is written in her medical charts. Do you know what the sound of a breaking heart sounds like? It's not a scream. It's not crying. It is a dry, short snap, like someone stepping on a dry twig in the forest. On the morning of the third day, Hannah heard that sound. Lily simply sneezed. A light, involuntary spasm of the body, and then came the snap. Hannah froze with a hairbrush in her hand. She looked at the girl. Lily didn't scream. She only exhaled convulsively, and drops of sweat instantly appeared on her pale forehead. Her small hand instinctively pressed to her side. A broken rib, just from a sneeze. "Hush, hush, I'm here." Hannah already knew what to do. Painkillers, immobilization, no panic, just cold efficiency. But inside, Hannah was shrinking. How can you live when your own body is trying to destroy you? When Hannah finished, Lily lay motionless, staring at the ceiling. "I'm sorry," the girl whispered. "I'll try not to sneeze anymore." Hannah went out into the hallway to get some water, and she had to lean against the wall to keep from crying. In this house, the victims apologized. The next night, the storm over Seattle began to gather strength. The wind howled in the chimney. The old house creaked like a ship in a gale. Hannah sat in the armchair next to Lily's bed. The night light cast long shadows. Lily wasn't sleeping. Morphine dulled the pain, but didn't let her mind rest. "She's there again," Lily said suddenly. Hannah looked up from her book. The girl was looking into the dark window, beyond which nothing was visible but rain. "Who, sweetie?" "The beautiful aunt. She came down from the stone." Hannah sighed. Hallucinations, side effect of the medication. "Lily, statues don't walk. Go to sleep." Lily turned her head. In the dim light, her blue eyes seemed glowing. "She doesn't walk, Hannah. She dances, right on the roses, on the thorns." Hannah went to the bed to adjust the blanket. "It's just a dream." "No," Lily's voice was firm. "Do you know why she is special? When I touch something, I break. But when she steps on the roses, even the petals don't crush. She is so light. She says gravity is just a habit." Hannah felt uncomfortable. There was something frightening about the detail with which the girl described it. "And why does she dance?" Hannah asked, just to keep the conversation going. Lily smiled, and that smile was the happiest thing Hannah had seen in this house. "She's teaching the steps for me. She said it's my turn soon." In the morning, Hannah was cleaning the room. It was a sterility zone. Lily's mother, Sarah, was obsessed with cleanliness. No dust, air filtered, no outside objects. Sarah even forbade flowers in the house. Allergens can cause sneezing, and sneezing is a fracture. Hannah was wiping the floor near Lily's bed when she saw it, a small pink spot on the sterile beige carpet. She bent down and picked up the object. It was a rose petal, not dried, not old. Fresh, velvety, a deep dark pink color. Tiny drops of moisture were even visible on the edges, as if from dew. Hannah froze. The windows were tightly shut. The doors were locked. There hadn't been a single flower in the house for 8 years. She brought the petal to her face. The smell hit her nose, thick, sweet, the incredibly strong scent of a living rose. It didn't smell like a flower from a shop. It smelled like a garden after rain. "Hannah?" Sarah's voice from the doorway made her jump. Hannah reflexively clenched her fist, hiding the petal. "What do you have there?" "Nothing. Trash. Lint from the blanket." Hannah lied. She didn't know why. She quickly shoved the petal into her uniform pocket. Later in the bathroom, she took it out again. The petal was still fresh. And the smell seemed to have eaten into the skin of her fingers. Hannah threw it into the toilet and flushed. She was scared. The rational part of her brain screamed that this couldn't be. But part of her, the part that heard Lily's whispers at night, began to doubt. By evening, the radio in the kitchen began issuing alarming reports. National Weather Service issues storm warning, wind gusts up to 80 miles per hour expected, power outages possible. The atmospheric pressure was dropping rapidly. Even healthy people felt heaviness in their heads. For Lily, it was torture. Her bones ached. She lay curled up as much as the chair allowed. Sarah ran around the house checking generators, flashlights, water supplies. "It's going to be a terrible night," she muttered. Terrible. Hannah entered Lily's room to give her the evening dose of medication. The room was dark, only flashes of distant lightning beginning to illuminate the garden. The wind was already beating against the glass, demanding to be let inside. Lily wasn't sleeping. She was looking at the window, which was shaking from the gusts of wind. "Are you scared?" Hannah asked. Lily shook her head. She shifted her gaze to Hannah. In the darkness, her face seemed almost transparent. "No, Auntie said there's no need to be afraid. She said there will be music soon. And when the music starts, the walls have to fall." Thunder rumbled outside the window. The lights in the house flickered and went out, plunging them into total darkness. All that remained was the howling of the wind and the calm, steady breathing of the girl who was waiting for her dance. By midnight, the house ceased to be a fortress. It turned into a sinking ship. The wind didn't just blow, it punched the walls with fists. The old Victorian mansion creaked, groaned, and shuddered, as if complaining about the pain in its wooden joints. Rain lashed against the windows with such force that it seemed the glass was about to bend inward. The power had been out for 2 hours. Sarah was on the verge of hysteria. She ran down the corridor with a powerful tactical flashlight, its beam dancing on the walls, snatching terrified faces from family portraits out of the darkness. "The generator should have started," her voice cracked into a shriek. "Why isn't it working? The breathing apparatus. If Lily gets worse—" "Sarah, breathe!" Hannah grabbed her arm. "Lily has a portable tank. We'll manage." But Hannah didn't believe it herself. The atmosphere in the house was electrified. The air became dense, heavy. It smelled of ozone and damp earth, as if the storm was already inside, not outside. Hannah entered Lily's room to check on the girl. In the flashlight beam, the room looked ominous. Shadows from the soft panels looked like long black fingers. Lily wasn't sleeping. She sat in her chair absolutely straight, turning her head toward the window. Outside, hell was breaking loose. The sky was torn by flashes of lightning, white, sharp, blinding. In those fractions of a second, the garden looked like a black and white photo from a horror movie. Trees bent to the ground, flying branches, a wall of rain. "Lily, get away from the window," Hannah said, coming closer. "The glass is cold." The girl didn't move. "Look, Hannah," she whispered. Another flash of lightning illuminated the garden. Hannah looked where the girl's thin finger was pointing, to the center of the garden, to where the niche was. Hannah's heart skipped a beat. The pedestal was empty. In the strobe light of the storm, Hannah clearly saw the stone base, but the statue of the Virgin Mary wasn't on it. "It's a trick of the light," Hannah muttered, feeling a sticky fear crawling up her neck. "No." Lily's voice was calm, even joyful. "She came down. She is coming for me." At 2:15 a.m. the world collapsed. First came a sound like a cannon shot. It was the trunk of the centennial oak growing by the west wall cracking. And a second later, a crash rang out. A loud, piercing, terrifying crash of 1,000 shards. Bam! A huge branch, caught by the hurricane, rammed through the French window in Lily's room. The barrier Sarah had been building for 8 years. The glass that separated the crystal girl from the cruel world. It all vanished in a single second. The storm burst into the house. Wind, rain, leaves, shards of glass. It all poured into the room in an icy stream. The door to the corridor slammed shut from the draft with such force that plaster rained down from the ceiling. "Lily!" Sarah's wild scream drowned out even the howl of the wind. Hannah and Sarah rushed to the door. It wouldn't budge. The air pressure in the room had changed, turning the door into a vacuum plug. "Help me!" Hannah yelled. Together they threw their weight against the door. 1, 2. The wood gave way. They flew into the room and froze. Sarah's flashlight beam darted around the room, picking out scenes of destruction. The floor was covered in broken glass. The carpet was soaked through. Gusts of wind scattered pillows like fluff. The huge oak branch lay in the middle of the room like a dead monster. Hannah aimed her flashlight at the corner where the special chair stood. Her breath stopped. The chair was there. The safety belts were unbuckled. The pillows were rumpled, but the chair was empty. "Where is she?" Sarah began to gasp, sinking to the floor. Hannah shined the light further. The glass door leading directly into the garden, the one that was always kept locked, with the key Sarah wore around her neck, was flung wide open. It banged against the wall under the blows of the wind, and on the floor, among the shards of glass shining like daggers, wet footprints were visible, small, barefoot, leading straight into the darkness, into the very center of the raging hurricane. Lily was gone. Have you ever run toward the thing you are afraid to see most in the world? Hannah ran. She jumped out through the opening of the broken window, not feeling the sharp edges of the frame scratching her shoulders. The storm hit her in the chest like a physical body. The rain was icy and dense. It instantly soaked her uniform to the thread. But the wind wasn't the scariest thing. The scariest thing was the sound under her feet. Crunch. The terrace was strewn with shards of the French window, sharp razor-like pieces of glass mixed with mud and broken branches. Even in her thick work boots, Hannah felt the unevenness, and Lily was barefoot. "Lily!" Hannah screamed. The wind immediately tore her cry apart and carried it away. Behind her in the house, Sarah was in hysterics, but she didn't have the strength to come out into this hell. Hannah was alone. She turned on her flashlight, and the beam of light cut through the wall of rain. What she saw made her heart stop. 30 meters from the house, deep in the garden, stood a small figure. Lily was wearing only a thin cotton nightgown, which now clung to her body. She was standing in the middle of the mud. Pieces of shingles torn from the roof and broken glass lay around her. For the girl of glass, even standing on an uneven surface was a death sentence. Her ankles should have shattered under her own weight. The shards should have sliced her feet to the bone. The cold should have caused a spasm that would break her spine. "Don't move!" Hannah screamed, rushing forward. She slipped, fell to her knees in the mud, got up, and ran again. But Lily didn't listen. When Hannah got within 10 meters, she suddenly stopped, because the storm had changed. Chaos raged around them. Trees bent to the ground. A siren howled somewhere. Rain stood like a wall. But around Lily and the stone niche, there was a vacuum of silence. The wind didn't blow there. The rain fell softly, vertically, like a light summer shower. And there was light. It wasn't Hannah's flashlight. A soft, pulsating blue glow emanated from the place where the statue should have been. It enveloped Lily like a protective cocoon. Hannah stepped into this circle of light and gasped, not from the wind, from the smell. Amidst the smell of wet earth, rotting leaves, and ozone, a scent suddenly arose that could not be confused with anything else: roses. The sweet, thick, warm smell of thousands of blooming roses. It was so intense that Hannah felt dizzy. And then Lily moved. She didn't fall. She didn't writhe in pain. She raised her arms up towards an invisible partner, and she took a step, then a turn, a pirouette. On the wet, slippery grass covered in glass, the girl with fragile bones danced a waltz. Her movements were fluid, impossible. She was smiling, her eyes were closed, and her face glowed with absolute unearthly peace. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Hannah could read it on her lips. "Lily!" Hannah burst into the circle of light. The moment she touched the girl's shoulder, the blue glow flickered and went out. The scent of roses vanished, replaced by the sharp smell of mud. The storm crashed down on them with renewed force. Lily went limp like a rag doll. Hannah managed to catch her a moment before she hit the ground. She pressed the small, cold body to herself, shielding it from the rain. Terror gripped Hannah. She had probably just killed her with this grab. The sudden movement, the fall, Hannah's weight. All of this should have turned Lily's skeleton into dust. "No, no, no, please," Hannah whispered, feeling the girl with trembling hands. She waited for a scream of pain, waited for the feeling of unnaturally bent limbs under her fingers. But Lily was silent. She was unconscious. Hannah aimed the flashlight beam down. She needed to see the damage. She needed to know how much blood the girl had lost walking on glass. She shined the light on Lily's feet. They were dirty. They were wet. Blades of grass and clumps of earth clung to them. Hannah ran her finger along the sole, wiping away the mud, preparing to see deep cuts. The skin was pink, smooth, not a scratch, not a single cut, no bruise, no swelling. Hannah shined the light on the spot where Lily had just been dancing. A piece of window glass, sharp as a knife and as long as a hand, stuck out of the mud. Next to it was a clear print of a small bare foot. The print was pressed right over the shard. By all laws of physics, the glass should have pierced the foot through, but the glass had bent. The sharp edge had melted and curved under the weight of the fragile girl, as if it were soft wax, not tempered glass. Hannah looked up at the niche. The statue of the Virgin Mary was in place, wet, dark, motionless. But at her stone feet, right through the concrete base, a single living flower had broken through. Hannah scooped Lily up in her arms, tightly, not afraid of breaking her, and ran back to the house. She didn't yet know what the doctors would say, but she knew for sure that the laws of medicine in this garden tonight had been repealed. The doors of the emergency room flew open with a crash. Hannah ran inside, holding Lily in her arms as carefully as if she were carrying a lit candle into a hurricane. Behind her, stumbling and gasping with sobs, ran Sarah. "We need a gurney! Stat!" Hannah shouted. The nurse at the reception desk looked up, and her face instantly turned pale. She knew them. Everyone in this hospital knew Lily, the crystal girl. "Code Blue, trauma!" the nurse yelled. A team of orderlies rushed toward them. "Don't transfer her!" Sarah screamed, grabbing an orderly by the arm. "You'll break her. She has osteogenesis imperfecta type 3. If you pull her arm, it will tear off." The doctors froze. The situation was a nightmare. An unconscious girl, covered in mud, wet. To save her, they needed to act fast. But any fast action could kill her. "I'll lay her down myself," Hannah said in an icy tone. She approached the gurney and, slowly holding her breath, lowered Lily onto the sheet. Lily didn't make a sound. Her head lolled back limply. Dr. Roberts, the head of trauma, ran into the bay. He was a tall, dry man in his 50s who believed only in X-rays and scalpels. "What happened?" he asked, pulling on gloves. "She was outside during the storm," Hannah answered quickly. She was running." Dr. Roberts froze. He looked at Hannah over his glasses as if she were insane. "Running? Lily, are you joking?" "She fell, doctor. I found her in the garden." "On broken glass," Roberts swore through his teeth. "Prep the OR. Urgent MRI and full-body X-ray. Prepare for massive internal bleeding. If she fell, it's mush inside." The next 40 minutes dragged on like an eternity. Hannah and Sarah sat in the corridor, staring at the red light above the X-ray room door. Sarah rocked back and forth, whispering prayers. Hannah looked at her hands. They still smelled of roses. That scent wouldn't wash off even with hospital antiseptic. Finally, the door opened. Dr. Roberts came out. He took off his glasses, wiped them with the edge of his coat, and put them back on. His face was gray. He looked not like a doctor who had just made a diagnosis, but like a man who had seen a ghost. "Sarah," he said in a hoarse voice, "Hannah, come with me." They entered a dark room lit only by the glowing screens of the view boxes. X-rays hung on the wall. A child's skeleton, skull, spine, ribs, thin leg bones. "We took 3 series of images," Roberts began, "because I thought the machine was broken." He pointed at a scan of the shin with a pointer. "Do you see this?" Sarah stepped closer, squinting through tears. Usually Lily's X-rays looked like a spider web. The bones were transparent, thin, with many traces of old fractures. But these bones, they were white, bright white, dense, glowing against the black background. They didn't look like fragile twigs. They looked like a monolith. "I don't understand," Sarah whispered. "Where are the fractures?" "There are none," Roberts answered. "Not one. But it's not just that, Sarah. Look at the density. Lily's bone tissue. It has changed." The doctor turned to them, and there was fear in his eyes. "This is biologically impossible. Overnight, the structure of her skeleton changed at the molecular level. Her bones right now aren't crystal. They are harder than steel. I have never seen such density in a living human. If she were shot, the bullet would ricochet." A deafening silence hung in the room. Only the hum of a fan disturbed the peace. "And her feet?" Hannah asked. "The soles. She walked on glass." Roberts shook his head and pointed to the couch where Lily lay. "Look for yourself." Hannah walked over. She took Lily's small foot in her hand. The skin was clean. No cut, no bruise, no scratch. Even the mud Hannah had seen in the garden had vanished, as if washed away by something pure. And again, faintly, Hannah smelled that scent. Rose oil. "We checked her blood," Roberts continued, muttering behind her back. "Calcium levels, phosphorus. Everything is perfect. This is a miracle. I don't use that word, but I don't have another one." At that moment, Lily sighed. Her eyelashes fluttered. She opened her eyes, bright blue, clear, without a shadow of pain. She sat up on the couch, by herself, abruptly. Sarah cried out and rushed to her. "Careful, baby!" But Lily didn't wince. She stretched like a normal child after a long sleep. Her spine straightened, her shoulders squared. "Mom, why are you crying?" she asked. "Lily?" Sarah stroked her cheeks, her arms, not believing they were whole. "We were so scared. The storm. You left?" Lily smiled, the same smile Hannah had seen in the garden. She looked at the doctor, at Hannah, at her mom. "I didn't leave, Mom. I was called." Hannah stepped closer. "Who called you, Lily? Do you remember what happened?" Lily looked at her legs, which were swinging freely from the couch. "It was very loud. The wind broke the window. I was scared. But then Auntie came. She took my hand. Her hands were warm, Hannah, much warmer than mine." The girl jumped off the couch onto the tiled floor. Dr. Roberts flinched to catch her, but froze. Lily stood firmly. "She said it was time for a lesson," Lily continued, doing a little dance step right in the hospital room. "She said, 'Trust me, and glass will become water.' And we danced a waltz. 1, 2, 3. She held me tight. She said I will never break again." Hannah met Dr. Roberts's gaze. The man of science stood leaning against the wall, a tear running down his cheek that he had forgotten to wipe, because on the X-ray behind his back shone a skeleton that had been created anew. 6 months passed. Seattle, known for its rains, gave the city a rare, absolutely clear day that Sunday. The sun flooded the old Victorian mansion, which no longer seemed like a gloomy fortress. The windows on the ground floor were thrown wide open. A light breeze played with the curtains, but no one in the house was afraid of drafts anymore. Hannah sat on the terrace with a cup of coffee. She still came here every day. Formally, she remained Lily's nurse, but her medical bag had been gathering dust in the hallway for 6 months. There was no longer a need for it. She didn't come to change IVs or apply splints anymore. She came to be a witness. "Look, Hannah, I'm faster than the wind." Hannah looked up and smiled. Across the green lawn, which had once been a forbidden zone, a girl was running. Lily wasn't just walking, she was running. Her legs, once fragile as glass, now stomped on the ground with confident strength. She tripped over a tree root. On the terrace, Sarah, Lily's mother, sucked in a breath. Old habits die hard. A mother's heart still skipped a beat every time her child fell, but Lily didn't break. She fell on her knees, laughed, brushed the grass off her jeans, and ran on. "She falls like a normal child," Sarah whispered, wiping the corner of her eye. "My God, Hannah, she got a bruise. I never thought I'd be so happy to see a regular bruise." Hannah left her cup and went down into the garden. She walked along the path where broken glass had lain that stormy night. Now flowers bloomed here. Sarah and Lily had planted them together. No bans on allergens, no fears. Hannah approached the stone niche deep in the garden. The statue of the Virgin Mary stood in the same place as always. During the day it looked ordinary, old, porous stone, covered in moss in places, no blue glow, no movement, just the silent guardian of the garden. But Hannah knew what she had seen, and the proof was here. She knelt at the base of the statue, where Hannah had seen a sprout breaking through 6 months ago. A flower had now blossomed. It was a rose, but not red and not pink like the ones growing all over the garden. The petals of this rose were a delicate blue color, a color that does not exist in nature for roses, the color of Lily's eyes, the color of the cloak of the one who danced here in the storm. Hannah leaned in and inhaled the scent, the very same one, warm, enveloping, conquering any fear. "You knew, didn't you?" Hannah asked the statue quietly. The stone face of the Virgin Mary kept its eternal, mysterious half-smile. There was no answer, but Hannah didn't need one. In the evening, when the sun began to set, painting the sky in gold, Hannah was getting ready to go home. Lily, tired and happy, sat on the porch steps. "Hannah," she called, "will you come tomorrow?" "Of course, sweetie." Lily looked at her strong legs, then at the garden. "Auntie doesn't come to dance anymore," she said thoughtfully. "Do you know why?" "Why?" "Because now I can dance by myself." Hannah got into her car and looked at the house in the rearview mirror. All her life she had believed only in medicine, gravity, and X-rays. She believed in what could be touched and measured. But in that garden she learned a lesson not taught in medical school. Sometimes, to become as hard as steel, you need to trust someone who is softer than a petal. Sometimes, to save yourself, you need to stop building walls and just walk out into the storm. Do you believe that faith can heal even what doctors consider impossible? If this story touched your heart and you believe that miracles happen, write in the comments the phrase Lily heard that night. Time to dance. Let these words be your first step toward your own miracle. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories about how heaven touches earth.